Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time on Doctor Who Classic, we had the first 3 episodes of The Power of the Daleks. What were those about?
Well, first of all, of course, Hartnell renewed himself into Patrick Troughton with I don't want to say a completely different look, but the thing that struck me the most about him was the incredibly weird hat that he was wearing. You know, it's like a battered stovepipe hat or something that Abraham Lincoln might have thrown out.
Yeah.
But they land on the planet Vulcan, peace, prosperity, and all that. But it's not the Star Trek Vulcan because they're mining liquid mercury, at least if I recall correctly.
Something like that.
Made no sense whatsoever. And there's vague mention of a rebellion, but we've never seen it. They've uncovered a capsule, and the doctor says, "Oh, I know what's in there," and he opens it up, and it's Daleks, who, for the first time in 3 years, do not immediately come out and try to exterminate everybody. Now they're trying a subtle approach. We will, serve you. They even remove the blaster arms for a couple of them, but the idea is the Daleks are now conspiring amongst themselves to take over the planet and wipe everybody out. At least if that's what I seem to recall correctly.
Basically, yeah, they're sort of playing like, oh yeah, we'll be your servants, but then they're secretly planning something, and the scientist that they have at this colony is completely oblivious, but the doctor is on the case. Our new second doctor, who has not fully formed his personality yet. He's being very mysterious as of right now, and we don't really know much about him.
And constantly plays an annoying little panpipe or whatever that is.
Yes, a little recorder.
Yeah, recorder.
Yeah. So, yeah, we don't really have... I mean, obviously we have episodes that we've seen where he has a more defined personality, but as of right now, 3 episodes in, nothing. So, but yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. This time around, we're moving on to the next 3 episodes of The Power of the Daleks. Once again, we're pretty much just going to be doing the color version. I don't think there's any difference if you have the black and white version, like if you're going for full length or anything. So it should pretty much be the same, but yeah. I guess that's pretty much it.
The only other thing, at least I remarked last time, that I thought the animation for the Doctor and Polly were very good, but I don't think the animation for Ben looks like him at all.
Yeah, he's definitely got like darker hair than I think he normally does. So.
And the face isn't quite right. Again, Polly with the hair and the face and Troughton, they look very similar to what you would expect in real life, but the Ben animation's really kind of off.
Yeah. As a slightly unrelated side note, I saw that. Remember when we did the Web of Fear, and there was one episode in the middle that was missing, and that was the episode where they introduced the Brigadier. I saw that they're actually going to release an animated version of that episode next year. Oh. I have no idea if that's going to come out in time for our, I guess, re-reaction we'll end up doing. We still haven't also figured out what we're doing for the re-reactions, so maybe we might as well just sort of watch them like we normally did. So,
and I swear, because I've already shown it to you once, I will dig up that picture of me from when I did Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution when I was in college. Had very short hair, little clipped British mustache, and I swear, again, this would have been 1973, 74, so slightly after this, but to me, I look like a dead ringer for the Brigadier. Which seems impossible now because, I'm much different looking. But back then, actually, with the short hair and the little mustache.
Well, I mean, it would work if you just imagine your black hair, being short and also not having all the gray in there. So,
yeah. That was 50 years ago, so.
Yeah, so, but yeah, I could definitely see it with your specifically black hair.
Yeah.
Because you have black hair. No matter how many times you say you have brown hair, it's black. It's specifically black hair. No matter how many times you say it.
You have brown hair.
Yes.
Your mother has light brown hair. Your brother has brown hair. So how is it you think I have black hair?
Because you have because genetics can work like that.
Okay, but although my dad had black hair, my mother had kind of this auburn-colored hair. And all of my life, my hair has been... I'll grant you, it is dark brown. It's much darker than yours. But my hair is not black. It is brown.
But remember, my hair started off as the brightest of blondes and then turned brown over time. So maybe yours was a tad bit lighter, maybe, or something, but it's definitely... It's black. I'm looking at it. It's black.
Okay, but that's indoor light. If you were to go outside and look at it...
It would still be black.
It would be brown. But moving on.
All right, we're done with that tangent. So, with all that being said, let's go ahead and go right into this episode of Doctor Who. Here we go.
This is Valmar. Chest score, please. Terrace.
Wasn't Valmar one of the Martians on Santa Claus Conquers the Martians?
Now with the interior and then the perimeters.
Now that the communications are restored, we can start a search.
Yeah, I can just imagine what kind of job you'll make of that. Haven't you heard anything yet?
The planet is a large one.
Yeah, but how big is the colony?
So, they've given you the run of the colony, have they?
I like he immediately goes for a chair.
Static, you see. They need a constant supply of static from the floor. Some sort of electrical field.
Well, the first time they needed that. I thought we were past that by now.
Say what you like, but I'm beginning to believe that the Examiner is right about the Daleks. Their original thinking terrifies me.
Oh, now.
If we can control them, fine. But if not...
Yes.
Then I shall have them destroyed. It's too dangerous. The Examiner knows something about them that we don't.
He's really turned around
I'm
on the
going to ask his
Daleks.
advice.
It's the rebels' way of calling a meeting. Only tonight. We are going to be there. Early.
Yeah, maybe we're nearer finding Polly than I thought.
Now, it may be because they're inanimate, but the animation on the Daleks is much better than the animation on the people, too.
Well,
No! Help! Help! The guards will have heard that. Come on, we've got to get out of here. Take him and lock him up. Quick! Out!
You might as well come out. We know you're there.
not exactly sure what all happened there.
So see if you can stop this one from killing me.
Stop! You heard me, that's an order. Turn away. But how will you look in front of the governor when I explain your dual role to him?
The governor
Doctor's
will
really
hardly
good at
listen to
dodging,
an
apparently.
imposter.
Yeah.
Just give me a chance to get my hands on him.
We don't have that chance unless we can get out of here.
It's just the little matter of the cell doors.
You know, when he said, oh, it works on sound. Really hoping it's like, maybe this is it. The sonic screwdriver.
No, it's a dog whistle.
Ugh.
Dalek soup. They're creating squids.
You make squids like you make French fries.
So there's a supply of squids in hibernation in the capsule, and they're reviving them and building new Dalek outsides.
Yep. This pod is a lot bigger than I thought it was. Though maybe it's bigger on the inside. Wish we could have seen all of those suits. Alrighty. That is part 4.
Well, strangely enough, in the middle of all of the action, they somewhat of an expository.
Yeah, a bit of a slower episode.
Gotta get all the explanations out of this, that, and the other things. Not a lot of action, but yeah, we
Yeah.
are way further along in the plot.
Yeah, Lesterson now knows that the Daleks are evil, and I guess there's the conflict now between the Doctor and Bragan, I guess, and there's the rebels. I still don't get them. I don't, what are they rebelling?
Yeah.
I want to know that. Like,
What's their end goal? What's their end game?
yeah, we're not sure, but, try not to sneeze. And then I did actually like just this whole sequence of building a Dalek, you know? It because we don't normally get that. Because, you know, like on modern Doctor Who, like occasionally you'll see the squid and that's about it. But this was like, no, it's like they're here somehow. I don't get how nobody noticed this in this capsule. Like, did nobody notice how giant this capsule was, but you only got like one tiny room? So, I don't know. But it's like, okay, so they have the squids, they, you know, dip them in the, you know, fry oil, get them out, shock them, put them in a suit, and they're off. So, it does make me wish that we saw the actual shot of all of those Daleks.
Yeah. I suspect it did not look like that. I suspect it might have been cut together because, you know, let's face it, how costly would it have been to build 12 or 13, 15, 20 Daleks like that? They probably had 4 or 6 of them, which they then were kind of panning across and then figured out how to cut in so that they could use the same 4 just in a different formation and just basically probably panned across them like that.
Yeah. And I will say, you were saying that the animation on the Daleks is a lot better than the humans. The humans, like, it is a very strange sort of animation that they have to do for them. But I think with the Daleks, they might actually be like 3D models that they're actually moving around. And I was kind of looking, the environment itself might also be kind of 3D, which is why like all the other characters sort of seem out of place. Yeah. So
it's a combination. I think Disney did this, and probably Pixar too, back in the 90s. Because I remember specifically when Lion King first came out. Most of Lion King was in 2D animation, but then that herd of whatever it was that came down and ultimately trampled Mufasa to death,
right?
That was computer generated. And that was one of the very first times. And then, like in Hercules, the Hydra was computer animated. So they began to mix 2D and 3-dimensional stuff, and that looks like what they've done here. Because yes, you're right, the Daleks do look 3-dimensional, whereas everybody else looks very flat.
But even though it's 3-dimensional, it's still kind of the same. Well, I mean, kind of the same art style, even though it is still the basic Dalek design. So, yeah, I don't know. And the other thing is, well, I had it and then I lost it. Okay. So,
well, maybe it'll come back to you.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's just an odd sort of animation. Oh, it was that it's pretty obvious that this is an animated version of audio from a different time, because it's like, you know, when the Daleks sort of move around, if this was just a normal, like, just made from the ground up animated, you would just hear like a humming as they like go across. But no, you're hearing this sort of weird metal cardboard wooden thing go across a floor being captured on 1960s microphones.
Yeah.
And it's like the audio doesn't quite match the visuals, but that's not really their fault. There's really nothing they can do about it, unless they just overhauled the entire thing and just kept the voices. So, which they could. That's also a lot of extra work. So, yeah.
Boy, when they said they were arming the Daleks, they weren't kidding.
Nah. I think they can get past the door, man.
But I've got to talk to him. I've got to, don't you understand?
Did you think we couldn't get past the door?
No more than 3 Daleks to be seen together at any one time. I obey.
Ah, yes, the old shell game.
We are not ready yet to teach these human beings the law of the Daleks.
Did they animate it bumping into the camera?
What's the matter?
I'm afraid you'll find these locks are foolproof.
I wonder how they're converting the power.
What are you talking about?
Maybe they'll make a sonic
They're powered by
screwdriver.
static electricity.
Remember the pitch.
Oh, yeah.
Pass me that small screwdriver.
I can't. My hands are tied. Anyway, I wouldn't help you even if I could.
Okay.
Right, they've had sound and a screwdriver mentioned. This has to be it, right?
I only know what the doctor has told me. He says they're capable of exterminating whole nations.
Perhaps, but what would they want to kill us for after we've taken over? We're friendly with the Daleks.
Don't you see? Human beings can't be friends with Daleks. They don't have friends.
I don't see why not.
It's a kind of
They tried having
hatred
friends
for
once. It
anything
didn't work out.
themselves. They think
They are the junction boxes outside.
Thank you.
Talk too much, don't you?
I can't carry it. I don't have fingers.
No.
All right, I'm just putting...
We are superior, but we don't have opposable thumbs. Peripheral vision and opposable thumbs, otherwise they'd be masters of the universe.
Well, they just need like a rear view or some sort of like turning mirror and a tractor beam.
What are all these cables lying about?
New emergency power supply.
Whose idea was that?
What do you want to know?
I have this idea that in order to defeat the Daleks here, they're all going to rub their feet very quickly on the floor and then touch the Daleks and they'll all explode.
Why are you carrying a gun?
I'm a squad leader in
This-
Reagan-
this-
Overload them with static electricity.
That sounds really dumb. So let's see if it happens. It doesn't help that he's not great with that thing anyway.
Sonic wrench? Sonic blowtorch?
Sonic blowtorch. Kara says, a door. Oh, and a wrench. That's why.
Have they escaped?
They used a wrench.
Return to capsule and report. I obey.
That threw a spanner into the works.
Ah ha ha
One man.
Sieg Heil.
It's interesting because they do have the plunger they could have used.
There was...
Wait a minute. Their things are reversed.
Yeah. Looks like someone messed up a shot and had to reverse it. Okay, that's episode 5. This is another one of those, how do you resolve this in one episode?
Yeah.
So, I mean, not a ton happened in that one. Like, you know, I guess we had the governor's death.
And Lesterson was locked up because they think he's crazy.
Yeah, and the doctor is, I guess, going back to jail. I'm still wondering, maybe he grabbed, maybe this is it, we're finally to the sonic screwdriver. But, I don't know. It's at some point in the second Doctor's era, that's all I know.
Yeah.
So, now, it's interesting the way they say, like, because I was curious why they were bringing up the static electricity again, because I thought that after the first serial, we were just done with that. Like, oh, well, Daleks, they've advanced, and they don't need the static anymore. But it's that the static will give them a constant charge, whereas otherwise they do have a finite amount of power, and they need to go and recharge. So,
Well, here's the thing about static. It doesn't specifically have to come from the floor, because static electricity can literally come from anywhere. So if they're building some kind of giant circuit that will electrically charge the air, that's like rubbing, the carpet or something else, and putting the balloon on your hair and the whole works. So I'm assuming that this all resolves itself with the Doctor figuring out a way to either cut off that supply somehow or to overload it so that the Daleks literally, implode.
yeah, it might be something like that. It's just interesting because I'm pretty sure the past, 3 serials, they just haven't mentioned the static electricity, or at least at the beginning of, the Dalek invasion of Earth, they mention it's like, oh, well, they've advanced.
Then again, we're not sure where this is in the timeline.
That's true.
This could be a group of the original Daleks who left Skaro before the first Doctor fried all of them, and now because they've been waiting here on this far-flung planet for centuries, that they are not aware of all the advances that the other Daleks had made.
Yeah, because I mean...
But again, there's the problem here is there's nobody sitting in, I guess, what should be Sidney Newman's position, going, all right, here's what we did with the first Daleks. So if we're going to write another Dalek serial, we have to make sure that there's continuity. This is just, hey, we got a new doctor. We need to keep the kids interested. I know, let's throw in the Daleks.
Yeah.
We'll go back to that whole static electricity thing. Yes, but don't you remember? We've already done this. Oh, never mind that. Nobody will remember any of that stuff. So, because remember, there were no repeats. There's no way to see any of this again. So 3 years later, if you remembered even vaguely about static electricity, that would have been a miracle.
Yeah. Well, also, this is the first Dalek serial where there's no involvement by Terry Nation at all.
Yeah.
So, because even, the Daleks' master plan, he was there for a while, then he just sort of dropped off and they had to get a different guy to write the end. But this one, just absolutely no involvement whatsoever. So it's possible that he was sort of keeping that continuity in his own stories, but now you got a new person. It's like, okay, maybe they watched the first serial, or they just, saw the script or something. It's like, okay, static. Okay, I guess we'll go with that. So
yeah,
it's quite possibly that. So,
but again, we tend to forget that there are no reruns of this.
Yeah,
there's no way that unless you were literally working for the BBC and could have seen some of those early tapes to have any kind of continuity, and it makes you wonder at what point. Here we are into, season 4. At what point, when they realize that this is going to continue, does somebody say, maybe we should set down a set of guidelines? They're more like guidelines. So that we'll know what we've done in the past and try not to contradict it so obviously like they've been doing. So.
Right. And I would imagine that'll also be the same for, the Cybermen, where it's like, oh, well, the Cybermen, they got power from Mondas or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, if we bring them back, how do we bring them back without bringing back Mondas, So it's, at some point, they gotta just sit down and figure stuff out, Which, I would assume has to be soon, because I think at some point in the Second Doctor's era, they'll also start bringing in the Time Lords, and if you're gonna bring in the Time Lords, then you really gotta start figuring out, set continuity just for your main character. So...
Exterminate all humans!
Alright, now they're back to right arm, egg beater, and left arm, toilet puncher. Wonder why they switched that one.
It must have been in that shot, they would have gone that way and then rounded the corner, but that doesn't work with the slight continuity, I guess, of the ship.
This area is restricted. Obey, or you shall be exterminated.
I thought they obeyed us.
What do we do now, Doctor?
Run.
This way.
You push the guard in front of you and then run.
Do you think I can ever be secure in that chair while that rabble are still loose? They rebelled against Hensel yesterday. Tomorrow it'll be my turn.
Must they all be slaughtered?
All of them. Well, are you still with me?
I suppose so.
Then do as I say.
No!
And they say Pertwee is the action doctor.
I came here to do exactly what you've done. Let Bragan see what the Daleks are like. He doesn't know how strong they are. He's got to be stopped.
You
right
will
here,
lead
right there.
us to the middle of your party of human beings.
Yes.
We will fight for you.
I guess they'll be exterminated
The only way to
last.
save all our lives.
We will serve you. Take us to the center.
We are
of
friendly.
your room.
Like bunnies,
trust
we
them?
multiply.
The guards have orders to wipe us out. We must use the Daleks.
I'm completely lost on the rebel plot.
Yeah, it's not extremely well defined.
It's just sort of happening while the Daleks are happening.
I tried to turn the power off, but they were miles ahead of me. Marvelous creatures. You have to admire them.
But we've got to stop them.
Oh, it's too late for that. They're the new species, you see, taking over from Homo sapiens.
Oh, now he's really lost it.
It was interesting. Earlier, saw the Daleks come down the ramp, but that's easy enough, you just control it. But I saw them also going up the ramp, and that must have been very difficult on the inside, trying to, shuffle that up there.
Right.
Where is it, Yesterson? Valmar's the only one who can answer that. Or the Daleks, of course. They know everything. Yes, you should ask the Daleks.
I think the butter has slipped off his noodles.
Stay here.
Okay, here's the casting call. We need people who can die.
You'll have to leave her now, Velma. She wasn't as bad as you think.
It's kind of bad.
Yeah, put that on your resume. I was, female corpse number 2 in the panoramic shot.
These are all the caterers that they had to... Between food, they just lie down, put the suit on. That one doesn't get shoes.
Well, the shoe kicked off behind there, it looks like.
Well, you know what you're doing? Of course I do. Why can't you just take all the bloods out and cut the power off?
Because I prefer to do it my way.
Look out!
Should have put a wrench in there. Why is it the Doctor is the only one that can dodge?
You all right?
He's okay. The clock knocked himself out.
That's a miracle. How'd you do it?
What happened?
What'd I do?
You destroyed the Daleks, that's what you did.
Did I do all that?
You may have stopped the Daleks, but have you any idea of the damage you've done to the colony?
I think we'd better get out of here before they send us the bill.
Doctor, you did know what you were doing, didn't you?
Ugh. Alrighty. That was episode 6.
I, again, have to say my initial reaction is the same as last week. Vague disappointment. I mean, I understand they're trying to come up with a personality for Troughton, but it's, again, if I had just spent the last 6 weeks watching this, I don't know that I would have continued watching, because he's not engaging. What they were establishing right there at the end is he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't answer their question, and that's not just being cagey, like, I knew what I was doing all along, and you guys just need to trust me on this. Again, that's not the way it came across. Yeah. If that's what they were trying for, that's not at all the way it came across, at least to me.
Yeah. I mean, he is a little bit more playful. Like, at the end, he's a bit more quirky than the first Doctor. But the thing is, it's almost like they're still writing him like the first Doctor, like they would with the first Doctor, where it's like, okay, the first Doctor, well, when he first started off, he was mysterious. Okay, well, let's try to go for that again. And, what have we been doing with the Doctor for, the past 3 seasons is, yes, he's the main character, but he also isn't really that involved. Like, he doesn't do a ton of stuff, but that was mainly because you had William Hartnell. It's like, this time you have, someone who's a bit younger, a bit more, active on his feet, but you didn't write him that way. You still write him, they still wrote him like the old first Doctor that only gets involved basically just to save the day.
And one of the comments a while back said that they announced several weeks in advance that Hartnell would be leaving, So you would think that the writers for these episodes could have been told, look, you're getting an entirely new actor, go and talk to him, or let's see what we can do. You've seen his work before, because he was relatively famous in Great Britain, I'm told. So they should have been able to mold the character of the Doctor a little bit better than that. And again, so far, I'm looking at this going, I wouldn't have understood their choice.
Yeah, he just hasn't defined himself apart from Hartnell yet. So,
and he hasn't even really defined himself as the Doctor yet.
Yeah, it's a bit shaky as him as the Doctor. So
yeah,
it's all very tricky because obviously this is the first time they're having to do this, and it's such a strange concept. It's like, no, this is the same character, but it's a different actor, and it's like, okay, well, do we just write him as if he was the same character, or do you try to write him as he is the same character, but he has a different personality? Like, how does that work? Well, and I'm also remembering back to An Adventure in Space and Time, when they showed, it's like, oh, we were thinking of, Patrick Troughton, and Hartnell is like, oh, yeah, that's a great choice. And, when he actually comes on set, it's like, I told them there's only one man in England who could take the role. And it's like, okay, so I don't know how much of that is necessarily true, or if they were just adding that sort of for the movie itself. But if that is the case, what did they see that we're not getting here? It seems like, okay, if they specifically chose Patrick Troughton, and it's like, okay, he's going to take over the role of the Doctor, and even Hartnell, gave his blessing for it. But did Hartnell think, oh, Patrick Troughton, he'll carry on the exact same role that I had, or will he do his own thing? Yeah. It's like, I'm not sure.
Now, I will say this. This may be partially because of the animation. Because the animation cannot capture, especially the facial movement and the eyes, the way that the film could. And maybe Troughton was doing a whole lot of stuff, facially, or, with a little shrug, or, a look or whatever, that we're not seeing. But, again, we're now 6 episodes into his tenure and getting literally nothing from him. Aside from the fact that outside of the Daleks, this was a very weird episode. What were the rebels rebelling against? We never did find out. Why was Bragan, other than being, a megalomaniac and wanting to, rule over the entire... again, the plot that we dropped the Daleks and the Doctor and Polly and Ben into, that plot didn't make much sense.
Yeah.
And, having Lesterson figure out how to reanimate them is one thing, but at the end, when they said there's only one way to stop them, and then didn't apparently use that. Because they said there's a secret place in the capsule, but the Doctor was simply working with a junction box, dodged out of the way, the Daleks shot the junction box, and then apparently overloaded themselves. At least that's the way it came off.
Yeah.
And that, again... You set up, this is the only way to stop them, and then something else happens, and they all blow up, and you go, no, that's not what you said.
Well, also, too, because it seems like, they were saying, it's like, oh, why don't you just unplug it? Unplug the cables, and then they'll be gone. And the Doctor says, well, no, I want to do this my way. And it's like, okay, so maybe his, because they do say it's like they do have their own stored power, so even if you unplug them, it's going to be a little bit before they actually, die out, basically. So maybe the Doctor's way is quicker, but you're right, it's like, okay, so what exactly did he do? The only thing I could think is that sort of panel was connected to that secret cable, and maybe he was thinking, okay, I'm going to mess with the settings, and then when they shoot it, them shooting energy at it will overload it, and then start overloading the cable to overload them, basically overloading them with their own energy. But he doesn't say that. He gets up and is like, oh, did I do that? Okay, well, bye. He pulls an Urkel and then he leaves.
I had that exact image in mind. Did I do that?
Yeah, so...
Again, it still strikes me that it would have been funnier and much more clever to literally just have everybody start rubbing their feet on the floor and sneak up behind the Daleks and zap them and watch them explode that way. Seriously, that would have made more sense than what we saw.
Or even just... You could have even explained it like that. It's like, well, yes, we're going to basically overload them. Basically, like rubbing your feet on carpet and then zapping someone. It's like that, only on a much grander scale.
Yes. Or throw a bucket of water on them. Anything that would short circuit them. I mean, because they spent the entire time setting this up and then didn't follow through with the setup.
Yeah, or at least just didn't explain it well.
So I guess rather than disappointed, let's just say that I don't know if you are, but I'm certainly frustrated by what's happening so far.
Yeah, it is frustrating. It's like because it feels like, okay, they want to sort of bring back the mystery of the Doctor, especially after this, renewal that they're really not even explaining. Like they have a throwaway line from Polly. It's like, oh well, he must have just changed his face to because he said his body was wearing thin. And it's like, okay, that is the most you get because this Doctor is clearly not explaining anything. So it's like they're trying to keep up a mystery of this, but the story's over now. Unless this is still going to be brought up for the next few episodes, which maybe, but I don't see that really happening. So I'm not sure. And yeah, the fact that it's like, okay, the whole plot could have been, the Doctor, Ben and Polly, they show up, there's Daleks, and it's like, oh, they're playing servants, but then they turn on them and they have to defeat them. Okay, that's fine. Maybe not 6 episodes, 4. Maybe you could have gotten that in 5. 6 is a bit much, but okay. And that's it. For some reason, there's a rebellion. We don't know why. We don't know what they're rebelling against. There just is a rebellion.
We're still not sure what the colony was about. I mean, seriously, are they mining for Mercury or aren't they? Why was Mercury such a big, huge part in the first couple of episodes and then it went nowhere? Yeah,
it's like, okay, they're mining for something, possibly Mercury. I guess that... overall, I guess it doesn't really matter. It'd be nice to know, but it doesn't, really work into the plot. But they're rebelling. So what are they rebelling against? Was it just the governor, or was there something? Was he a strict governor? Do they not like mining Mercury? What was...
Yeah, there was nothing about the governor, Governor Hensel, that made you think that there was a reason to rebel against him.
Right. It's like there is a rebellion, and then the other problem is we can't devote any time to the rebellion because we also have Bragan, who's trying to, Palpatine this, or he's got, he's playing the colony and the rebels. He's pitting them against each other so that he can take power. But the problem is, this entire complicated plot is happening. That could be 6 episodes on its own, but you threw the Daleks in there, and a Doctor who's just not talking about anything.
Yeah. This is like, you're mixing a whole bunch of different ingredients, expecting to have them all come together in some kind of, baked product or stew or something. But you drop them all into the pot and they stay separated. It's like, oil and water. It's like they're simply not mixing. And no matter how much you stir them up, 10 seconds later, they're all separated again. It's like, okay, then this makes no sense. Why are we doing this?
It feels like there were 2 different stories. Daleks and whatever this strange rebellion thing was. But for some reason, they were put into the same story, and in the worst possible place you could have put it, right after the Doctor regenerates. And, they're adding all the mystery and all that stuff. Okay, whatever. But those 2 things then take away from this new Doctor, basically. Like, if it was just the Daleks, like, okay, the Daleks are here, they're playing servants, but we know they're going to sort of, do something. Okay, then the Doctor, over these 6 episodes, okay, the Doctor, he comes into his own, and he is his own Doctor. Okay, let's do that. But this rebellion plot is just taking too much away from both the Doctor and the Daleks, honestly.
Yeah. And literally except for the first episode and the last 5 minutes of the last episode, Ben and Polly and the Doctor were separated nearly the entire time.
Yeah.
Right? Polly gets kidnapped, then Ben gets locked up separately from the Doctor, which seemed kind of odd. So they're not working together at all. There's no mix going on there. You don't know interaction between the characters who already know each other, supposedly. And then at the end, Ben's going, "What are you doing, Doctor?" And she says, "You meant to do that, right?" And he's going,
Yeah,
did I do that?
It's... Well, first off, Ben was captured by the rebels, which so was Polly, but they were captured in different places. And then the Doctor was captured
by Bragan.
So he was put in a different place from them, because he was basically being captured by Bragan the Governor, not Bragan the Rebel. So,
but for a series that relies on the interaction between the Doctor and his companions, there was no interaction.
Yeah. You know what else it feels like? Maybe this is sort of a way to differentiate the second Doctor. I feel like if we had this entire story, but it was the first Doctor, as soon as, they overload and all that stuff happens, and Ben is like, oh, well, what'd you do, Doctor? I almost feel like the first Doctor would kind of boast. Like, he'd be like, oh, yes, let me tell you exactly what I did, dear boy. And then he would sort of lay it all out, or maybe he'd get interrupted or something. Yeah. Like, it's almost like the first Doctor would almost show off. Even though that's not really his personality. Like, no, he would try to explain exactly how he did it with his...
Or he'd say something like, I can't believe you don't know how I did this, and then set out to explain it.
Right. It would be something like that. Or, like I could see him especially doing that with, like, Steven or someone. So maybe that's how they're trying to differentiate the second Doctor, is that he's not really taking credit, he's not really boasting about it, he's not trying to explain it. But the problem is that means it makes no sense in terms of the story. Yeah. What did he do? We're not sure. He won't tell us. So...
All right, well, let's again, just like last week, brains are exploding here because it's not that it's not up to our expectations. We're trying to follow it. We're trying to see what they're doing. And every time we open a door, we're right back into the same room that we were before. It's a circular logic here that's not working for us at the moment.
Because it's like, it's not that we had like super high expectations of like, oh, here's what exactly they should do and stuff. It's like, we're just trying to figure out, it's like, okay, what are you doing here with there's two or three different plots in this, and you're trying to establish this Doctor, but you're just not doing that. You're just not establishing him as his own Doctor, So, yeah, it's all very strange. Let's see. I mean, we kind of talked already about like the static charge, and it's like, okay, well, they haven't really talked about that since the first serial. Like in the Dalek invasion of Earth, they kind of brought it up. It's like, oh, well, how could they be here, Doctor? They need the static electricity or something, and the Doctor's like, oh, well, clearly these are more advanced, or it was something like that. But then they bring it back up again, but they kind of work with it. It's like, oh, well, they have a battery, but they need to recharge. But if they don't want to recharge, basically like if you just use your phone but you keep it plugged in, or your laptop and you keep it plugged in all the time instead of, letting it use its own battery. So they need the static in order to just have a constant charge. And it's like, okay, but we haven't needed that in a long time.
In the Daleks Master Plan, when they were going through the jungles, where they have found static in the jungle. I mean, after a while, when their battery wears down, there's no place that they could have gotten static in a jungle.
Yeah. Now, granted, again, we said it's like we don't really know at what point are these Daleks in their own timeline, because they seem to be the pretty basic Daleks. Honestly, like, okay, this is before the chase and the Daleks Master Plan. They don't have the time machine or anything, so it's like, okay, it's before that. But it also feels like it's a bit before the Dalek invasion of Earth, because the humans don't know about the Daleks. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so they're not capable of time travel. The humans don't really know who they are. So it must be before the Daleks invasion of Earth, but before or after, somewhere around the original Dalek serial. And it's like, okay, I guess, so that's why they still have this static thing, but they're slightly more advanced, that they have their own charge. So maybe, like, in the Daleks Master Plan, when they're going through the jungles, well, either they don't need static, and they just have a renewable, unlimited energy source, or they just have enough of a battery to last until they get back to the time machine, and we are overthinking this way too much.
I'm getting a headache.
Yeah, I
think we're overthinking way too much. I don't think anybody in 1966 was thinking about any of this. They just said, oh, let's toss in some Daleks and have them fry themselves.
Yeah. And clearly whoever wrote this was not thinking that. Whoever this, it's David Whittaker. I feel like we've had David Whittaker before.
It sounds familiar, but I couldn't think of who.
Unless he was a producer. I don't know. I've seen the name before, so yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't know if this guy has written anything before, but he's obviously never written a Dalek serial, because it's always been Terry Nation, except for about half of the Daleks' master plan. I think that was Dennis Spooner that took over.
Now, I will say this. The one good thing that I saw in this serial about the Daleks is that they learned subtlety, that they didn't come right out and say, as soon as they burst out of the capsule, we're going to exterminate you because you're all lower life forms. What they said was, there's only 3 of us at the moment, so we need to assume that we could be overwhelmed by the huge number of human beings here, so we will tell them that we will be their servants. We will help them to get material to us so we can start building other Daleks. So, I mean, that was new. That's something they've never done. They've been very straightforward from the very beginning. We are the master race and we will exterminate everyone. So that was nice. But again, with all this other garbage piled on top of it, that's almost lost.
Yeah. And the fact that I guess they did technically recognize the Doctor in like the first or second episode. So it could be part of that too. It's like, okay, we have to really bide our time before we can go all out. Yeah. So, yeah. We had the production of the new Daleks, which that was cool to see at least. Yeah. I did like that just because they really haven't shown much. Like, in the first serial, you really just see sort of just one little claw like under a blanket or something. Yeah. But we don't really see just the assembly of a Dalek and just the squids in general. So,
I like your image of dropping them in the deep fryer there.
Yeah. Let's see.
Calamari for everybody.
We had the sound lock. Still no sonic screwdriver, but I think he's starting to get an idea now. He's starting to get like, what? I need a way to be able to use like some sort of sonic sound thing at any moment. Okay, how could I do that? I think he's getting ideas. Obviously, that's not happening. The writers weren't thinking about that, and when it pops up, it's just going to be, he just has that. Just write that in. All right, good. But in canon, that's what I'm going to say is the case. Although I think in the expanded canon and the lore and everything, technically I think the first Doctor also had a sonic screwdriver, like in some of the audios or a book or something. So yeah, technically in canon he should already have the sonic screwdriver. He just doesn't. So, but it was kind of interesting with the whole sound lock, and he had to find the right note, like on the whistle and his recorder and the cup and everything. So that was kind of interesting. They killed the governor. We don't know why. They just did. Well, other than Bragan was power mad, obviously. Yeah. But why were they rebelling? We don't know. It's gonna be like, what I bet it's gonna be. It's gonna be that we missed one line. Like in the first episode, we missed one line. And it's like that we're rebelling because taxes. I don't know. It's something like that, and we just miss it. And all the comments are gonna be, you missed this line. It's about the taxes or something. So, if we did miss the reason for the rebellion, please inform us, but we've got nothing. There just was a rebellion. Yeah. So, let's see.
That Governor Hensel hired all the best people.
Nah. Let's see. Recharge. Kill the rebels. Bragan had to kill his own people because they could potentially turn on him. I mean, that's pretty classic power crazy person being too paranoid, so that makes sense. And then it was interesting that the Daleks, even when they were starting to just mow through everyone in the colony, then there were still like one or two of them was like, no, we will fight for you, and then just went forward and it's like psych, and then started killing them too. So that was that.
Subtle.
Yeah.
The Daleks, again, they're developing subtlety, but they can't develop peripheral vision or opposable thumbs.
Yeah. Now, when they had, like, when they were doing the squid assembly, like, there was one where it's like, instead of the plunger, it was, the fry grate, basically, to get them
fry
out.
Basket.
Yeah. And then, there was the other one who had, like, the two shockers to bring them to life.
And in one of the Dalek series, it may have been in our tour of Classic Who, didn't one of them at one point have somewhat of a pincher that they could, like, touch buttons or turn knobs and things like that?
Possibly.
Yeah.
It might.
It just seems like, if you're going to have killing machines than having the plunger and the laser or whatever it is. But there have to be variations. There needs to be somebody who's got a way to turn dials and push buttons. A Dalek with 2 fingers or something. So we're 3 years into this. This is what, the 4th or 5th time we've seen them, and yet they're still the same flawed machine that we saw at the very beginning. We got a plunger and something else and no peripheral vision. Seriously, sneak up behind them, rip their head off, and do something to the squid inside.
Yeah. Well, now we also saw in the 9th Doctor's episode when there was a keypad. They did put the plunger up, and somehow the plunger was hitting all the buttons on the keypad. So, granted, that's the 9th Doctor. They've had plenty of time to think about, okay, how do we make this plunger work for everything? So, they didn't really think about that here. But it would be interesting if, they had a shot of, okay, this Dalek needs to do something, and they have the plunger, and then it just goes back in. It swaps out for something else, and then a new appendage comes out, basically. Yeah. That'd be kind of cool. Let's see. How is it that the Doctor is the only one that can dodge a Dalek?
And he did that 3 different times. Yeah,
it was really... It's very strange. I mean, I guess... Well, because... I don't know. I don't know if Hartnell would have, done that if the first Doctor could do that, but I guess the first Doctor wasn't in too many situations where he was about to get shot. Yeah. But, the Doctor is the only one that can dodge it, which is strange because it doesn't seem like, they have a laser. They don't get the lasers until much later. So, just the way they do it, it's they fire, and then the whole screen, changes, it inverts the colors and everything. So, to me, that feels like it's a spread shot. So, everything, within that window is going to get hit. But I guess not, or the Doctor's just that fast. So,
or we're maybe finding out that he is somewhat impervious to that. I mean, because again, it looks like 3 separate times they shot at him, and he got up and walked away from it.
I guess, because there have been times where a Dalek has shot him, and and that actually forces him to start regenerating. So, granted, that's later on, but it could also be there's sort of an explanation later on that for a while after the Doctor regenerates, or at least for the first episode after the Doctor regenerates, he basically is sort of invincible for a little bit. The regeneration, it's a slow process. Even though his body has changed, it's still sort of working and sort of winding down. So there's a moment after the 10th Doctor regenerates, he gets into a sword fight, and they basically lob his arm off, and he's like, well, I'm still within the first 48 hours of my regeneration, so he just grows a new arm back, and it's like, oh, well, that was lucky. So it could be, and again, they weren't thinking about this, definitely, but if you want to have that sort of, deeper explanation with stuff we learn later, it could be that the 2nd Doctor, in this episode only, is still a bit resilient. Even if he did get shot by a Dalek, maybe it would hurt, but it wouldn't kill him, basically. He wouldn't regenerate again. So, or he can just dodge. I don't know. So, we have to make up so many, lore excuses, which, people do that all the time. They find their, theories and headcanon using lore from 50 years later of this explains it. It's does it really?
Does it really?
Yeah. Let's see. I guess the last thing I wrote down was the overload, which again, maybe it's that, okay, the wire that's, the cord that's hooked up, the secret cord that's hooked up, it's wired through this panel, so I have to use them to shoot it, which will send their own energy through the cable back and overloading all of them. Could have been that, but he doesn't explain it. So
a feedback loop of some kind.
Yeah, but he just doesn't explain it that way. So no idea, and he won't say anything. So,
and right at the end, the semi-fried Dalek lifts up its eye stalk.
Yeah, so I guess that could be a possibility of that's how they'll come back or something, or maybe we'll get a sequel to this sometime. I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea.
What's up next? What's the next episode?
The next one up is the Highlanders.
Oh.
Yeah, so most likely we're going to be meeting Jamie in that one. And also, because of that, next week we're back to Recon Town.
Oh.
Yeah. It's, I don't know when the next...
You said most of these were animated.
Some-ish. Kinda.
Some-ish, kinda? Wow.
Yeah. Well, the Highlanders is not. So, let's see if I can zoom this in. Okay. No, the Highlanders is completely missing. That's a recon. I think the Underwater Menace... No, that's just partly missing. So, slight recons. And then, like, the Moon Base, partly animated. Yeah, some of these are completely animated, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So next week, full recons. So we'll just have to deal with that, and that's pretty much all for subtitles for a little while too, until we get back to those animated episodes. But yeah, I guess that is pretty much it. So, yeah. In other news, we also watched Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, so go watch that. Go watch the video.
Go watch the video, but I talked about how the Doctor Who movies were bad. This is a level of badness that is exponential. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is ill-conceived, poorly written, worse directed, miserable acting. I mean, there's literally no redeeming qualities about it whatsoever.
So if you want to see more of that, go watch that reaction.
Yes, Alex tells me that I went on a several-minute rant at one point.
It was amazing.
Without realizing it.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, it's amazing. That's what the people want. So go watch that, too. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our Doctor Who classic reactions, you can click on the playlist, you can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.